How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Armchair Analysis here on the channel. Hope you guys are having a good start to your week. This is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. We got Wake Forest on deck, and first off, let me address the surroundings. I'm at home. I had a family emergency, and I'm not going to dig too deep into that or anything else that went on. But beyond the family emergency, one of my dogs also passed away. So yesterday was a day that I couldn't get a video out, and I apologize. But it's been a really tough week, and thankfully I was able to get everything recorded through Sunday. Um, but I didn't really know what the plan would be or how to address said plans. Over the last few days and how to get a video out yesterday, so it just didn't happen, and I apologize. But hopefully, we'll be back on track and daily here on out going forward. Um, but again, we will see. I just really appreciate it and appreciate the patience as I kind of navigate through this time and figure out what to do. The surroundings are at my grandparents' house, so it's going to be a little interesting. I had to go buy a microphone because I didn't even think I was going to have to record videos. I didn't know how long I'd be up here. I will be back home. You will see me in my typical surroundings starting back again on Friday this week. But the next 3 videos are going to be a little different. They're not going to look as great. You can see the camera quality is not as good as back home. I didn't bring anything to record, so understand that I apologize for that. I don't like putting out content that's not up to par, up to standard with what we do here. But this is an extenuating circumstance, and again, hopefully it can be forgiven and understood. Um, but anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the Wake Forest Demon Deacons here in 2025. To do that, we always start by taking a look at the year prior. And the year prior marked a lot of intrigue for this program, a lot of questions. It brought a lot of questions to the university and to what the program's going to look like going forward. They went 4-8 last year, 2-6 in conference, and Dave Clawson retires. It was one of those things where I think Clawson knew he was falling behind the NIL game, and he wants to still be a part of it. That's why he's still going to be an advisor for this program. He's still going to take a lot of action in helping Jake Dickert, who is taking over as head coach, to get comfortable and understand what needs to happen here at Wake Forest. For those of you that don't know, I live in Winston-Salem. I do have, I don't want to say ties. I'm not a fan of Wake Forest. I've never really been a fan of Wake Forest in terms of I could take it or leave it. We could go either direction on that. But I like Jake Dickert. I've loved Dave Clawson, and I really like what this program had become under Clawson. So looking forward, how does it proceed in years to come? Well, when we look at last year, this was a team that averaged 25.7 points per game. That was 87th in college football. They allowed 32.5, which was good for 114, which is something they are drastically looking to improve upon. Part of that has to do with the fact that they had a really young roster on defense last year. Wake Forest typically follows a similar pattern to Northwestern, especially in the later years of Clawson, where experience mattered. And it was typically every 2 to 3 years they would have a down year, and then they would come back strong again the year after. Here in the NIL era, it's hard to say. And in the realignment era, we don't know exactly what Wake Forest is or can be going forward. This is a team that turned the ball or had an average turnover margin per game of negative 0.4, 95th in the country. They didn't turn the ball over last year, which I think was a solid mark, but they also didn't force a lot of turnovers. They had games where they did, but overall, this was not a team that really produced that big play defensively to get their defense off the field, give the offense a chance to march down the field and score. So in saying all of this, we transition to 2025. It's a brand new coaching staff. It's a brand new era of Demon Deacon football. And it's led by Jake Dickert, coming over from Washington State. if he brings Ben Arbuckle with him, which was not going to happen, but if he would have, we'd be talking a whole different story because John Mateer would likely be at Wake Forest. There would be a lot of things going the right way for the Deacs. However, it's not Jay Dickert, but it is Rob Ezell, who's coming over from South Alabama. This will be year one as the offensive coordinator at Wake. And Rob Ezell, for those who don't know, is, I don't want to say a genius, but I think that he is a really solid head coach. He knows how to scheme things up. And truth be told, I think he can do a really, really solid job of getting this offense going in the right direction, especially with an uncertain quarterback room. I think Robbie Ashford is the clear-cut number one going forward. But that leads me to the next question, or the next guy I want to bring up is Dan Enos, is the quarterback's coach here. Dan Enos has been around for a very long time, is very smart, knows exactly how to get the most out of his quarterbacks. I think this pairing, these three guys here, Dickert, Ezell, Enos, can bring this offense to a higher level than what they were. And this is not a bad roster, I don't think, anyways. It's maybe unproven, but I don't think there's a lack of talent. I just think there's a lack of proven commodities minus DeMont Claiborne, who's the running back stud 1,000-yard rusher last year. You got Tate Carney, who's going to step in. He's going to be that solid number 2 back. I really love what Tate Carney is. That pairing, I could see both of them being extremely crucial to this offense. And I could see Robbie Ashford, his legs are going to be a huge deal as well. We know that. We saw when Lenore Sellers got hurt last year, that was kind of the direction that South Carolina went. Dewell Logan's decided to go in getting Robbie Ashford comfortable in the offense. You got Micah Mays at wide receiver. He's the leading returning receiver to this program, 218 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. They bring in Sterling Burkhalter and Carlos Hernandez from the portal. Michael Frog is going to be the tight end. He only had 2 receptions, but he did bring in a touchdown in those 2 receptions last season. And then the biggest thing is the offensive line. It's heavy transfer portal, but it's still going to have to adapt to a new scheme, a new era, and really determining, again, what this team's identity is going to be on offense. And I would presume it's going to be run first in 2025. If I were to say what I would be surprised with, if we see Robbie Ashford being a gunslinging style quarterback, I think the Wake Forest does not do good. If they can roll off of their strengths, which is the running game, it's going to be the quarterback run, the option attack, those types of things. We're talking about a team that could very likely put themselves in the bowl eligible conversation. And I think that all of these coaches that I've just mentioned here on the offense are smart enough and capable enough to know that that's the route they need to go. As for the defense, they're going to be led by Scotty Hazelton. Was at Michigan State most recently in 2023 in the college ranks. And I think that this is going to bring an aggressive attack to the Wake defense. I think that one thing that we've noticed and one thing we've seen over the last few years is a conservative, just get your tackles, just make your tackles. And that's even been it has never been a guarantee for the Deacs over the last few years. They have not been able to really tackle consistently. Nick Anderson's going to be a big deal for that, a safety coming back. 122 combined tackles, 56 of those solo last year. He's also the interceptions leader returning. He was the interception leader for the team, along with tackles leader for the team last year. So you get a lot of experience coming back. That's the one thing with this defense, is it is experience-driven going forward. Quincy Bryant comes back. He led the team in forced fumbles. Zach Lohavichin, I think that's how you say it. If I missed it, sorry. Comes back. He's a sack leader returning, but they bring in a couple transfers on the defensive line. Dylan Hazen was a tackles for loss leader, another linebacker. 7 tackles for loss. 84 combined tackles last year for the program. So there's a lot of guys here that I think bring a really interesting level and a really interesting dynamic to this defense. I think Scotty Hazelton is going to utilize that experience, utilize I think the tackling abilities of Hazen and Anderson specifically, and be aggressive. I think that we're going to see a totally different Wake Forest defense than what we've seen in years past. As for the schedule, and I'll go ahead and get it pulled up here on the screen if it'll work. There we go. So, Wake Forest has a schedule of intrigue, I would say, would be the word I might use for this. It's not the toughest. As a matter of fact, their non-conference schedule is pretty eashy. Their toughest game is going to be going on the road to Corvallis, taking on the Beavers at Oregon State, and I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a tough game or not. It's going to be part of back-to-back road games leading into a bye week. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But altogether, I don't see a brutal schedule, given that we don't really know what other teams are going to be. I just see a schedule that they're going to have to find a way to work through and win games. Now, there are much tougher games than others. I think that second half of the year, minus Delaware, we're talking about if you can come out of there 2-4, I think you're happy with that. If you come out of there 3-3 or better, Jake Dickert gets a lifetime contract. And I mean, I know that sounds funny, but realistically, they have never been able to maneuver a schedule, especially with teams as they're shaping up to be as good as those final six. They've never been able to do it. So I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch for going forward here. You get Kennesaw State and Western Carolina to open the year up, and I think those are two perfectly placed games to really determine what you have, who you're going to be, and how you want to attack. Because realistically, you're not going to be in jeopardy of losing those games. I know that we watched them struggle. I think it was with Elon last year. Might have been Elon. Actually, no, it was NCA&T last year. I'm sorry. They struggled with NCA&T last year, but I think that's also a much better opponent than Western Carolina and or Kennesaw State. Maybe even combined. So, overall, when you look at the schedule, their over-under sits at 4.5. Keep that number in mind. Their odds to win ACC, non-existent. Plus 30,000, tied for worst with Stanford. National championship odds, plus 100,000. That's the worst you can find. So, realistically, what are we expecting from a Wake Forest team this year? I think bowl eligibility would be solid because, again, this is a workable schedule. You can get through a lot of these games. If you come out of this first 6, 4-2, even 3-3, you still have potential because nobody in the back half is unbeatable. Nobody on this schedule is unbeatable. We've seen that over the course of the last couple of years. But nobody really believes in Wake Forest and what they are currently. So with that said, let's go ahead and predict the schedule. And of course, I already have it as 2 wins to start the season. I think they're going to kind of go through these games again, experimenting a little bit, trying to figure out who they are, what they want to be. But once they do, we're going to be talking about 2 programs or 2 wins on the schedule and a program who really has an identity and a direction they want to go going forwards. They're going to play NC State, and this is on September 11th. This is a Thursday night game in Winston-Salem. If this game's played at Carter Finley, I probably feel a little different. The biggest thing is I don't know how to trust NC State any more than I trust Wake Forest right now. With that said, I'm taking the team that I think is a little bit more consistent, maybe a little more unknown. That's not typically the direction I go with these, but I think I know what CJ Bailey is. I think I know what this NC State team is. I'm not overly impressed. So with that said, I'm taking Wake Forest to get the win over NC State. They'll play Georgia Tech at home, coming out of a bye week, and maybe you could say trap game for Georgia Tech. It's really hard for me to go against Haynes King. I don't know that I have the ability to do that. I also don't know that I have the ability to go against that offense that I think is going to be lights out and amazing. They have a defense that's going to be returning a lot of production and a lot of players who I think are going to be all-conference, maybe even a couple All-Americans on that board. Georgia Tech is a team that I think competes for the ACC this year, which is something that they have not done in about a decade. This is not an indictment on Wake Forest. It's more so, what do you think of Georgia Tech? And I love them. I love the Yellow Jackets this year. They'll get the win there. They'll have a tough time on the road in Blacksburg. I think they're going to lose that game. It's putting them at 3-2 going on the road to the West Coast in Corvallis, Oregon. And in that game, I'm giving the Deacs a win. Look, I love Malik Murphy, and I think he's going to be a great quarterback for this team. at being Oregon State. But I do not love Oregon State as a program and as a team more than I like Wake Forest. And especially at this point in the year, they're going to know exactly who they are and how they're going to want to play. One of these two losses is going to be one score or less. And if that's the case, I think that means that this is an improvement upon last year. This is a team that did not compete much last year, especially defensively. They were not competitive. If they're doing that, which is what I expect, one of these games is going to be one score or less, the other one's not, and I'm projecting Georgia Tech to be less or more than a score. They're going to go to Oregon State with some confidence, even in 2 straight losses, and they're going to want to get right before their bye week. They're going to go out there and do just that in Corvallis. They'll come out of the bye week, and they're going to lose to SMU. I really like SMU. Kevin Jennings is a guy who really impressed me last year. I am a known Preston Stone stan, if you will, and seeing what Kevin Jennings did for SMU was beyond impressive for me. I like what he is. I like what he brings to the table, and I love what Rhett Lashley's doing in the portal. This is a team that's finally able to compete once again because NIL exists. SMU's not going anywhere. They're not going to drop off the map. They're not going to just be a non-factor in the conference. I think they're going to be another 8, 9, maybe even a 10-win team again, competing for a playoff spot. This SMU team is not going anywhere. They are going to be a tough out for anybody. I'm taking the Mustangs over Wake. The next week, they go on the road to Tallahassee. Similar thinking. If you already saw my Florida State video, you know exactly how I feel here. It's just Florida State, I think, is much more talented. I don't feel like this is going to be one of those teams, again, another 2-10. And as for Wake, they've struggled in the big games, especially in the big environments. That's, again, part of the reason for a loss to Virginia Tech, and that's a big reason for a loss here in Tallahassee. They just don't win in the big, tough, rowdy environments. Therefore, we move on. They go to Charlottesville, Virginia, take on the Cavs. And they're going to get a win there. I like Virginia. I think that Chandler Morris is going to bring a different dynamic to this offense, and they've seen. He's really a better Anthony Calandria. With all of that said, I just don't know how good can Virginia be is kind of a question in my mind. We'll have to find out. Personally, we will just have to find out. For right now, I'm taking Wake Forest again. I like them a lot more this year. They go to UNC, or UNC comes to town, and I'm gonna give UNC the win. I love what UNC looks like. I've been very critical of Bill Belichick, and I'm gonna talk more about that, of course, when we preview North Carolina later. I've been critical of Bill Belichick, but one thing that you cannot deny is the talent on the roster. Gio Lopez is a difference maker for North Carolina. If you do not know who Gio Lopez is, go find some highlights from South Alabama. He is just unreal. The confidence, the I guess swag that you may want to call it, he has it, and he is not scared of any team, any opponent, any environment. He's going to be a difference maker for this program this year. I can't say that enough. Can't stress it enough. North Carolina will win that game against Wake in Winston-Salem. They'll beat Delaware. Delaware's coming up to the FBS level, and they're going to have a hard time. I don't want to say that they're going to fall into that same pit as UMass has, but I will say that I don't foresee them being much better than UMass and UConn, especially in early years and really that mid-2010s cycle. They're not going to be terrible. It's just going to take them a while to catch up, especially while they're behind. You'll go on the road to Durham for the final game of the year, play Duke, and take the loss. I love Duke this year. Manny Diaz, this entire program, I really love what they are, and so it's going to be hard for me to give you that one if you're Wake. But 6-6 is an improvement, a 2-win improvement. Now, part of that's because you play a better non-conference schedule. Part of that's because you play a more favorable non-conference schedule. Part of that's because I'm giving you maybe a win or two you won't have. But all in all, I think that this is a team that we could see go out and win 6 games. I think 6 is the ceiling. I think 4 is probably the floor here. I don't see them going 3-9. I don't see them being worse. This is a team that I think gets better as we go. And even though it's not going to look that way because they're going to start 4-2 and then they're going to kind of fall off, it's because they're playing much better opponents in the final half. If you threw Cal and Stanford in there and replaced Florida State and Duke or something like that, they're probably an 8-win team. It just goes down to how the schedule falls. It's going to be really fun to watch Wake this year. I can't wait, honestly. I love it. Now, the one thing I like to do with every team, and I save this for last for a reason, I give my thoughts on every single team. And here were my thoughts for Wake Forest when I was going through them. This is a good coaching staff that will have a couple games to feel out what they have and build an identity for the future. I feel like Jake Dickert will bring success to this program in the years to come. And I still stand by that. I think that this is a guy who's going to succeed here, and whether or not he decides to stay or leave, totally up to him. And I don't think anybody would be upset with him knowing the success that he has brought to every program he's been at before. If he does try to take that step up and move up to maybe a blue blood program at some point. But for right now, he's going to set a tone. He's going to set an identity for this program. And it's going to bring local talent. There's plenty of local talent, whether it's down in Charlotte, whether it's in Winston-Salem itself, whether it's over in Raleigh, Durham. Even, I mean, you could even go as far over towards the coast in Wilmington. I mean, I know that's not a hotbed, but there are areas in North Carolina. There's areas in South Carolina where Wake Forest can compete and have competed in the past. If you set the tone that you are a winning potential, you have a winning program and a winning mindset, it does wonders for recruiting, especially in the NIL era where there's a lot of guys who do get overlooked, and there's a lot of guys who are not going to be making that kind of money elsewhere, but maybe they come to Wake Forest and they become a star player. It's never going to be a national championship contending program, and you couldn't get me to buy that notion. But in 2025, I think that this is a program that takes a step in the right direction and maybe does become a playoff contending program, which would do numbers and work wonders in its own right. With that said, I just don't see this failing if you're Jake Dickert. I don't see any of this coaching staff being a failure currently. I look at it. I love it. I think we're going to see a marked improvement for Wake Forest in 2025. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys would predict the record to be. Let me know some players. Remember, you know your team better than I know your team. And even though I am from the area, I may miss a thing or two. And let me know who I missed in this Wake Forest preview. Who should I be looking for? Especially these transfers, who should I be looking for in this program? And make sure you stick around because tomorrow we go to the Big 12 where we preview UCF, the Knights. Will they improve in year one under Scott Frost? Part 2. We'll find out here tomorrow. Make sure you stick around. Make sure if you got this far, you leave a like, subscribe, comment down below, of course, as I said already. But leave a like and subscribe. That helps these videos get out further. That helps you find these videos again down the road. Maybe later on there's a team that you want to see and want to hear a preview for. Maybe you're just an ACC sicko and you just want to see all my ACC previews. Well, they're all going to be in the same playlist. Every single one of my previews are in a playlist. So if you want to go find those, you can. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed or learned something. And with that, again, we'll see you tomorrow with the UCF Knights. By the way, there's not going to be an outro clip here because I'm on my laptop and I can't get it until I get back home. So, sorry. Anyways, appreciate you guys. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow for UCF.